It's time for FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota. Tonight, FC Dallas is on the road, and there is a look at field level of Lumen Field in Seattle. FC Dallas and Seattle Sounders going through their last few minutes of warm-ups. Eddie Koton will be joining us from Seattle in a moment. But right now here at the home of FC Dallas, Toyota Stadium in Frisco, with Steve Davis, I'm Mark Followill, and it's great to have you tuned in tonight across social media channels for FC Dallas. And then coming up at 8:55, the game is televised on FS1, but Steve and I will have the radio broadcast on fcdallas.com/radio, so you can tune in and get the local flair as we bring you FC Dallas and Seattle playing again, Steve, in the playoffs for the 5th time in 7 years. FC Dallas has won 1 of the previous 4 meetings. Seattle has advanced 3 of the previous 4 times, but it's some old friends getting together again.
We've seen some exciting games between these two, including last year. So, look, it's a tough place to play. Seattle's favorite, they should be, but FC Dallas delivered the upset last week against Portland. They came darn close to delivering the upset last year in Seattle. So, playing with house money now, you've gone a round deep into the playoffs. Let's just see what happens tonight.
As tonight's show unfolds, we will look back at that game in Seattle that Steve is referring to from last year when FC Dallas took Seattle to the limit. But right now, let's look at the highlights from last week's game a week ago Sunday night when FC Dallas had one of the most dramatic wins in club playoff history, advancing after extra time in PKs in Portland. That's how Ricardo Pepi tied it in the 93rd minute at 1-1.
Yeah, it took this big goal from Ricardo Pepi, which, if you watch the goal, I mean, there's a lot of skill here, but there's also just a lot of want to, and that's what you really like about this. There's a lot of grit, and there's a lot of desire here for Dallas just to hang in at a moment when they could have just sort of, folded up tent for the year. The goal was great, and it got them to this moment. And these penalty kicks, absolutely clinical. 8 penalty kicks, 8 for 8. How about that, Mark Followill?
Well, it's the first time that's ever happened in MLS playoff history where a team has made 8 PKs in a shootout. And I think what's interesting about it is it's forwards like Franco Jara, but it's center backs we've seen like Reto Ziegler and Matt Hedges, players that are midfielders who are playing out of position like Emma Tumasi. Every position on the field had someone contribute in terms of clinical finishing in these PKs, and then Jimmy Mauer's save.
Yeah, well, that's what you get when you go 8 rounds deep. You can't just have your strikers and your wingers shooting penalty kicks. But it was also guys that just haven't played a whole lot. Tumasi barely played this year, and then academy guys, young guys, stepping up. Tessman, Pepi, stepping up and hitting those penalty kicks with just ice water in their veins, right?
Jorge Villafana had the penalty kick that was saved by Jimmy Mauer at a very good height. Mauer guessed right, dives to his left, and had the critical save after all of those clinical, cool finishes on the PKs from the 8 different players for FC Dallas, who are now part of Major League Soccer playoff history based on their record-setting performance a week ago Sunday night. So now let's turn the page to tonight's game, which will be kicking off at 8:55 Central Time in Seattle. And let's hear the thoughts of FC Dallas manager Luchi Gonzalez, who talked with FC Dallas's Garrett Milser in this week's conversation with the coach, presented by Advocare.
Thank you. Luchi, obviously this game is a rematch of last year's postseason. What can you guys take from that narrow loss to apply to this game coming up?
No, obviously, we're proud of how we ended that game. We played with courage. We at one point we felt we were going to go into the PKs, but hey, Seattle ended up scoring the last goal, and we didn't. So that hurt, and they ended up winning the whole thing, and we don't forget that. And it's certainly a reference for us. We used that in the preseason, and what better opportunity do we have now to play them again? But for me, they're a fantastic team. You could even claim they're better this year than last year. And they've got some special individual talents, and they're very well coached, and they're a very complete group. And so congrats to them. But at the same time, we want that. We want to play the best, and to win a cup, you have to beat the best. And so we believe in our group. We've been working very hard and smart this last week, and we know we need to probably have one of our best performances of the year with and without the ball. So it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. It's going to take a lot of intensity. We need to be aggressive. We need pressure on the ball. We need also to get the ball and to keep it and to attack.
You mentioned you think this version of the Seattle team might be actually better than the one you faced last season. In what ways have they improved in your mind?
Well, they got more experience. From winning the cup last year, they know they had the experience to have done it. So that's a confidence there naturally that they've earned, and they want to do it again. And so we're in their way. So we recognize that, but we want to build an attitude that we're not happy just being in the top 8. we have ambition to be in the top 4, and that's the next step that Seattle's in our way. And I think the boys, like last year, know that we can compete and make it a game that is not going to be easy for them. But at the end of the day, to win the game, you have to have a better performance than last year.
It seems like this team has kind of developed an underdog mentality over these playoffs. Have you embraced that yourself and with the guys, and how has that galvanized the team for this next game?
I think it's just been natural, and of course it's been difficult with points away from home, and we picked up a few wins and a few draws, but it's not easy playing away this year with all the challenges and the travel. And we have to do that now against the MLS Cup champion from last year. So, yeah, no, obviously we're not the favorites, but we also weren't the favorites last week, and we had to know that and own that and embrace that. And we're going to do the same here. And even though it's the next step and stakes are higher, we want to embrace the fact that things are not supposed to go our way. And what are we going to do about it?
Well, great thoughts from Luchi Gonzalez visiting with Garrett Meltzer before tonight's game in Seattle. Steve, what did you think about Luchi's comments previewing tonight's matchup?
Well, Luchi said it. I think Seattle is probably a little bit better this year, so Dallas is going to have to be even better than they were in Seattle last year. They're going to have to play, look, no sugarcoating it, almost a perfect game. They got to be tough, they got to be smart, be patient, and when their chances come, they've got to make sure they don't waste them.
Still plenty more to come before kickoff tonight of FC Dallas and Seattle. This is FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota. Coming up in just a moment, we'll hear from the players about their playoff matchup against Seattle in 2019 and their reflections and what's changed since that instant classic. The 2020 regular season is done, but it's still time to get into the game for 2021 with memberships for next season on sale now. From free parking and members-only swag to exclusive access to your favorite FC Dallas players and personalized seat tag, membership has its privileges, like an exclusive chat with fans that happened recently with Luchi Gonzalez. Learn more about FC Dallas season ticket memberships at fcdmembership.com. More of FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota, after this.
Yeah, sounds like another amazing weekend. Brought to you by the Toyota Tundra and Tacoma. Toyota, let's go places.
Working from home can be stressful.
There are meetings. Can you see my screen? Deadlines.
Maybe tomorrow.
Reports.
That's why when I'm in need of a break, I grab an Advocare Oasis. It has adaptogens, berry extracts, and B vitamins that help me adapt to occasional stress. It's like being in my own little oasis.
Excited to redeem ourselves from last year. We thought we put in an amazing shift last year and thought the game was in our hands, and so to be able to go up there and try to redeem ourselves is great. So looking forward to the challenge.
They've improved, gotten different players obviously, but a lot of the same guys as they had last year. So we're looking forward to going there and trying to win and get a little bit of revenge for what happened last year.
The two most veteran tenured players for FC Dallas, Matt Hedges and Ryan Hollingshead, with their thoughts on what happened in last year's game against Seattle. And now let's look ahead to tonight's game in Seattle, because FC Dallas multimedia journalist Eddie Koton is on the scene in Seattle. Eddie, I know there's no fans there tonight, but there is a lot of music. It's pretty raucous sounding there with the music right now. What can you tell us about how the fellas feel going into the game and what the atmosphere is like there right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We're expecting the same situation as we saw in Portland. We're expecting to see artificial crowd noise come in, and the team practiced for that. They're prepared for that. And you talk about the focus level, you're looking at a team that now that they got that first win in the playoffs, something that seemed to be some sort of a demon for this team, there's a confidence level coming into this. They're not looking and feeling like underdogs. You can see and you can tell in a bunch of these guys, especially the young guys, a guy like Tanner Tessman, getting his chance to start in this vital game, he is absolutely focused. He's been focused his entire trip, and that's not like a young guy like him. So they're ready, and they are fully prepared. What's going to be interesting to see is whether this team attacks from the get-go, and I think that's something you guys will talk about as we go further on. It's a real question that we don't know the answer to until we see the start of this game.
Well, you did touch on one other thing I wanted to ask you about. What's something that you're hoping to see in the first 10 to 20 minutes of the game tonight from an FC Dallas perspective, Eddie?
I think a balance. You look at the lineup, it's an interesting situation where you have Ricarte playing as a 9 alongside Hara, and it'll be the balance between how defensive and how aggressive you get. A lot of people questioning whether maybe FC Dallas might park a bus early on and play very defensively, or maybe they'll go completely after it. I want to see a balance. I want to see a back-and-forth game, and I want to see guys like Tanner Tessman, young guys like him, not be afraid of this moment, because it is a big moment for him in his career.
It's a big moment for him. It's a big moment for FC Dallas. Eddie, thanks for joining us on Zoom from field level in Seattle at Lumen Field, where FC Dallas is playing tonight in the playoffs against Seattle Sounders in the Western Conference semifinals. So now let's move on and talk about the rest of the bracket, Steve, around the playoffs, because there will be a game later this week involving Sporting Kansas City and Minnesota in the West, but they've already finished things up in the East. On Sunday, there were 2 games with New England winning 3-1 in their contest against Orlando City on Sunday afternoon, and then Sunday night, a 2-0 win after extra time for Columbus Crew against Nashville SC.
Yeah, look, Bruce Arena, does anybody know how to win in the playoffs more than that guy? The answer is no. So he got the better of our old friend Oscar Pareja in that one. And then the other one, look, Nashville expansion story. What a great expansion year story that Gary Smith and that group wrote. A couple of old friends there, too. Walker Zimmerman, Dax McCarty. Couldn't quite get it done because of guys like Zardes and Zella Ryan for Columbus. Just a little bit more experience there. So I look forward to seeing the Eastern Conference Final, just like I'm looking forward to seeing the Western Conference Final.
Well, now the question is who's going to be in the Western Conference Final. One half of the bracket is set tonight. The other half of the bracket will be set on Thursday because of the NFL and some COVID situations there. The game that was going to be tomorrow has been pushed to Thursday, which means the Western Conference Final has been moved from Sunday to Monday. On Thursday, Steve, is Sporting Kansas City, the number 1 seed in the West, against a team that's defeated FC Dallas twice this year and scored 3 goals in both of those games, Minnesota United.
Yeah, I looked at the odds. Kansas City favored heavily, but I don't know because Kansas City can be so up and down. That back line a little more volatile than we've seen a lot of Sporting Kansas City teams be under Peter Vermees. But I tell you what, they are a different team. If Alan Pulido can get on the field, he's very good. They brought him in to score goals. He does it. He connects plays. So if he can play, Sporting Kansas City, big favorite. All
right, still a lot to come tonight here on FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota. We'll look at Luchi Gonzalez's starting 11, who gets the call for tonight's game in Seattle, and we have a great segment of Toyota Keys to the Game coming up. Steve Davis normally does those on the telecast, but tonight we're going to hand the reins over to Paxton Pomacall for the Keys to the Match tonight, coming up here on FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota.
Yeah, sounds like another amazing weekend. Brought to you by the Toyota Tundra and Tacoma. Toyota, let's go places.
So how is it?
Great.
Yeah, I think it does give you a little confidence. You just need a little momentum, a little bit of just the confidence knowing you can go in and win in a tough environment, especially on turf, where we're not used to playing on turf. So we've got some good experience with that now after being in Portland, and feel like kind of everything is lined up for us to do something in Seattle.
It's cool to be the underdog. Like we said, we don't play to prove people wrong. We just want to keep proving to people that believe in us right. And if that's just us, whether that's people that's out there, doesn't matter. We just want to keep doing our thing.
That's Ryan Hollingshead and Fafa Pico looking ahead to tonight's game for FC Dallas. This match against Seattle is just about 10 minutes or so away from kickoff. The game broadcast on television will be on Fox Sports 1, but Steve Davis and I will have the radio broadcast on fcdallas.com/broadcast/radio. Easy for me to say. We'll have that worked out by the time we get on the air for the radio broadcast, but that's coming up in just a few minutes so you can listen to our perspective on tonight's game. We're doing the game here from the home of FC Dallas, Toyota Stadium. There are no fans here, obviously, tonight. There were no fans last week in Portland because of COVID concerns in the Pacific Northwest. Same thing for tonight in Seattle at Lumen Field. So, Steve, FC Dallas is going on the road, and they're going on the road to tough places. However, some of that incredible home field advantage those clubs enjoy neutralized because of the unique situation of 2020.
Yeah, I always look at that a little differently. I think it's a little bit of a wash because some of the visiting players, I know some of the players on Dallas, I've talked to them about it, they get jazzed. They like going into that atmosphere, so I think that part is sort of a wash. But look, it's a hard place to play because Seattle is a darn good team and a good organization, and they've got Ladero and Morris and Rui Diaz. That's why it's a hard place to go in and play.
Well, those guys I know would be the keys to the game if Steve were doing tonight's keys to the game like he does on every television broadcast. However, Steve has been very gracious tonight to defer to the man, homegrown player, wears the number 19, a number of great honor, of course, connected with Bobby Ryan here with the club at FC Dallas, and a U.S. men's international. What more needs to be said? Paxton Pomykal with tonight's keys to the game.
What's up, guys? Paxton Pomykal back here, giving you, again, the keys to the match driven by Toyota. What a game it was against Portland. I was sitting at home in my couch. Some of you saw me on Instagram celebrate a little bit too hard. My first key to the match, I mean, you heard it here first. Do more good Jim. Come on, mate. 8 saves, 7 saves. Unbelievable. Clinical PKs. Getting there on the 8th stop. For us, Jim, thank you very much, sir. Number 2. Continue to use the post to our advantage. Pepe, I know you meant to play 1-2 with the post. Do it again, please. Kept us in the game, 92nd minute. Kid's on fire. Good stuff, Pepe. And lastly, old reliable, number 3, we gotta score more goals. I come back to my roots. That was number 1 on last keys to the match. Number 3 this time. We score more goals, we're gonna get it done. That is the keys to the match. Driven by Toyota, brought to you by yours truly, Paxton Pomykal.
Well, those are great keys. And just like Portland, Seattle is second in the league in goals scored this year, 2 per game. So FC Dallas did well defending and holding Portland to 1. That's maybe an even more difficult task to hold Seattle to 1. So scoring goals clearly going to be very important. He's on to something there.
Well, he is, of course. Look, Dallas and Seattle, 2 of the better teams in Major League Soccer on defense, but I just have a feeling that Dallas is going to need more than 1 tonight. I think Seattle is going to get at least 1. Dallas is going to have to score a couple tonight. So I look for maybe a 2-1 or 3-2. I don't think it's going to be anything like a 1-0.
Okay, so on whose shoulders will it be required to score those couple of goals that Steve feels like FC Dallas will need? Let's look at tonight's starting 11 for the game. And, of course, it will be Jimmy Maurer in goal. And, for the most part, the same group that will start last week starts this week's game. Reynolds, Hedges, Brisson, Nelson on the back line. Tanner Tessman in for Jesus Ferreira in midfield. Santos in midfield as well. Thiago Santos on the wings. Pico and Ryan Hollingshead. But Andres Ricarte moves up into a striker role tonight alongside Franco Jara in the strike partnership, Steve.
Yeah, the one change from last week's lineup is Tanner Tessman coming in for Jesus Ferreira, and as you noted, that pushes Ricarte a little bit further up. We hear it's going to be a 4-4-2. We'll see how it plays out. Look for Hollingshead over on the right to tilt inside a lot, which sort of opens that channel for Brian Reynolds up the right side. Also look for Hollingshead to come back a lot and help Brian Reynolds deal with Jordan Morris on that side.
The substitutes are the same group as last week except for Brian Acosta out and center back Callum Montgomery in the mix. So that's tonight's FC Dallas starting 11, and there are 20 players available for the game. For Seattle, let's quickly tell you that they'll start the same 11 that they did last week against LAFC. That includes Rui Diaz as the number 9, Stephen Fry as the goalkeeper. You've got Ladero as the 10, a lot of the same familiar faces. The wingers will be Jordan Morris and Jovan Jones. Joao Paulo and Christian Roldan as your holding midfielders. Your outside backs will be Nuhu and Alex Roldan. Gomez Marquez Andrade and Shane O'Neill are the center backs. Again, the same 11 they started against LAFC in a 3-1 win in the first round. Steve.
Yeah, you'll see Nico Ladero play offense, defense. I loved watching him play. Also, watch for him to tilt over to the left side, create overloads over there with Jordan Morrison combined there, looking to get the ball back inside to Raul Ruiz-Diaz.
Well, again, tonight's broadcast on television will be on Fox Sports 1. If you want to listen to Steve and I, we have the radio broadcast tonight on fcdallas.com/broadcast/radio. Do join us. The game's going to kick off in just over 5 minutes, and we'll have the call for our crew. And for Steve Davis, I'm Mark Followill. Thanks for joining us tonight for this pregame edition of FC Dallas Live, presented by Toyota.